Why bother with politics? Written by John Oliver. Politics, right? Sounds boring, like watching paint dry or listening to elevator music. But hold on. Politics, believe it or not, is actually a wild ride. It's full of drama, intrigue, and enough plot twists to make your head spin. Think of it like a giant soap opera, but with real-world consequences. Kings and queens, dictators and democrats, revolutions and reforms, it's all there. And just like your favorite show, understanding the past helps you make sense of the present. Why are some countries rich and others poor? Why do we have different political systems? To answer these questions, we need to take a trip down memory lane. Don't worry, I'll be your guide. We'll explore the fascinating, messy, and often hilarious world of political history. Buckle up, folks. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Ancient civilizations weren't just about pyramids and togas. They were political powerhouses, experimenting with different ways to govern. The Greeks, for example, gave us democracy, though their version was pretty different from ours. Then came the Romans, with their republic and their empire. They showed us how to build lasting institutions, but also how power can corrupt. From the emperors of Rome to the dynasties of China, ancient history is full of cautionary tales about the allure and the danger of power. These early civilizations laid the groundwork for the political systems we see today. They grappled with issues that still resonate: how to balance individual freedom with the needs of society, how to ensure justice and fairness, and how to prevent tyranny. Their successes and failures offer valuable lessons for anyone who wants to understand the world we live in today.
The Middle Ages saw the rise of powerful empires: the Byzantine Empire in the east, the Islamic caliphates across North Africa and the Middle East, and the sprawling kingdoms of Europe. These empires were centers of learning, culture, and trade, but they also engaged in fierce competition for power and influence. The Crusades, a series of religious wars fought between Christians and Muslims, are a prime example of this struggle. Meanwhile, in Asia, the Mongol Empire, under the leadership of Genghis Khan, emerged as a dominant force, connecting East and West through trade and conquest. This period of history reminds us that the world has always been interconnected. Events in one part of the world had ripple effects across continents, shaping the destiny of nations and the course of history.
Fast forward to the 18th century, a time of revolution and upheaval. The American Revolution, inspired by Enlightenment ideals of liberty and self-determination, gave birth to a new nation founded on the principles of democracy and individual rights. Across the Atlantic, the French Revolution, with its cries of liberté, égalité, fraternité, liberty, equality, fraternity, toppled the monarchy and sent shockwaves throughout Europe. These revolutions sparked a wave of political change, challenging the old order and inspiring movements for independence and reform around the world. The ideas of the Enlightenment, reason, progress, and individual rights, became powerful forces for change, shaping the political landscape of the modern world.
Clash of ideologies, 20th century showdowns. The 20th century was a time of unprecedented turmoil and transformation. Two world wars, fueled by nationalism, imperialism, and ideological conflict, reshaped the global order. The rise of totalitarian regimes in Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia, with their brutal suppression of individual rights and their pursuit of aggressive expansionist policies, cast a dark shadow over the world. In response to these threats, democracies around the world banded together to defeat fascism and contain communism. The Cold War, a period of intense rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, dominated the latter half of the century, dividing the world into two opposing camps. This era witnessed some of the most significant political and technological advancements in human history, from the development of nuclear weapons to the rise of the Internet. A world divided, the Cold War and its legacy. The Cold War wasn't just about nukes and spies. It was a battle of ideas: capitalism versus communism, democracy versus authoritarianism. The US and the USSR locked in an ideological struggle, supported different sides in conflicts around the world, turning local disputes into proxy wars. From Korea to Vietnam, from Cuba to Afghanistan, the Cold War cast a long shadow, shaping the political destinies of nations and leaving behind a legacy of mistrust and division. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 marked the symbolic end of the Cold War, but its impact continues to be felt today. The post-Cold War world, while no longer defined by bipolarity, faces new challenges. The rise of terrorism, the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and the resurgence of nationalism and authoritarianism. Winds of change, the fall of the Berlin Wall and beyond. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 ushered in a new era of globalization and interconnectedness. The fall of the Iron Curtain opened up Eastern Europe to democracy and market reforms, while the rise of China as an economic powerhouse transformed the global balance of power. The end of the Cold War also led to a resurgence of ethnic and religious conflicts, as old rivalries resurfaced in the absence of superpower patronage. The wars in Yugoslavia, the Rwandan genocide, and the rise of Islamic extremism are just a few examples of the challenges that emerged in this new world order. The international community struggled to respond to these crises, grappling with the complexities of humanitarian intervention and the limits of international law.
Globalization and its discontents. Globalization, with its promise of increased trade, investment, and cultural exchange, has brought both opportunities and challenges. While it has lifted millions out of poverty and fostered greater interconnectedness, it has also led to widening inequality, environmental degradation, and a backlash against cultural homogenization. The rise of populist movements in Europe and the United States, fueled by anxieties over immigration, economic insecurity, and a sense of cultural displacement, reflects a growing unease with the perceived downsides of globalization. The debate over the benefits and drawbacks of globalization continues to shape political discourse, highlighting the need for more inclusive and sustainable models of economic development.
The rise of Asia, a shifting world order. The 21st century has witnessed the dramatic rise of Asia as a center of economic and political power. China, in particular, has emerged as a global player, challenging the United States' dominance in areas such as trade, technology, and military might. The rise of Asia has led to a multipolar world order with multiple centers of power and influence. This shift in the global balance of power has profound implications for international relations, requiring a new framework for cooperation and competition among nations. The future of global governance will depend on how these rising powers choose to exercise their newfound influence, and whether they are willing to work within the existing international system or seek to reshape it according to their own interests.
Democracy in question challenges and opportunities. Democracy, once seen as the inevitable endpoint of political evolution, is facing growing challenges around the world. The rise of populism, fueled by economic anxiety, cultural resentment, and a distrust of elites, has eroded faith in democratic institutions and norms. The spread of disinformation and the manipulation of social media have further exacerbated these trends, undermining trust in traditional media and making it easier to spread propaganda and sow division. Despite these challenges, there are also reasons for hope. Citizen movements around the world are mobilizing to demand greater accountability, transparency, and responsiveness from their governments. The fight for democracy is far from over, and its outcome will depend on the choices we make today.
Shaping the future lessons from the past. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, it is more important than ever to learn from the lessons of history. The past is not a perfect guide to the future, but it offers valuable insights into the enduring challenges of human governance. From the ancient Greeks to the present day, we have grappled with questions of power, justice, freedom, and the relationship between the individual and the state. The successes and failures of past generations can help us chart a better course for the future. By understanding the forces that have shaped our world, we can become more informed citizens, more engaged participants in the political process, and more effective advocates for a more just and equitable world.